Some major changes to the playoff picture after week 5. We're going to give you our updated week 6 college football playoff predictions. Of course, Alabama beating Georgia, a huge win for them, puts them in great position to make it into the college football playoff. And for Georgia, with their schedule, what they've got coming up, it means they're going to have, I think, a tough time getting in. I still think they might can do it, but or obviously they can do it, but it's going to be much tougher than it would have been, obviously, if they had won this game. We saw Ole Miss go down. I'll go ahead and give you a spoiler here. I do not have Ole Miss in the playoff any longer. I think after losing that game, they probably lose a couple more games. You got Georgia, you got South Carolina this weekend. You've also got LSU on the road. So I think Ole Miss probably finishes 9-3. And that means no playoff for them. So what's the updated prediction here? I'm going to give it to you now. No changes to these teams. So I've still got Ohio State as the 1 seed. I think they have a really good shot at running the table. I'm going to give you the 2 in just a second. I've still got Miami at 3, Utah at 4, sticking with Boise State at number 12. I know a lot of people like UNLV, but I think Boise State's going to be able to win that conference. So that means we've got the 2 seed here, which obviously is the SEC champion. So I had Georgia. I've had them really throughout every week we've done this. I've had Georgia as the SEC champion and as the number 2 seed or the number 1 seed. I don't even have them in the SEC championship game anymore. I think that game probably now comes down to Texas and Alabama. And I'm going to go with Texas. I think Texas wins the SEC championship over Alabama, and the Longhorns get the 2 seed. So those are your conference champions. Now let's get to the at-large bids, starting at number 5. And for me, that is Alabama. So I think Alabama more than likely finishes 11-1. I think you look at LSU and Tennessee, 2 tough road games. I don't know that they win both of those. So 11-1, and then I think they'll lose to Texas, who I also think will be 11-1, possibly even 12-0 in the SEC championship game. So we're going with Alabama at number 5 as the top at-large team. Now, how about number 6? We go to Oregon. I think Oregon finishes probably 11-1, and then they will lose to Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. Actually, looking at it right now, I think the Buckeyes probably win both of those matchups. So Oregon gets in at number 6. Then we go to number 7, the Georgia Bulldogs. So I think I'm looking at 10-2 for them. I think that's where this team will finish. I think, you look at Texas on the schedule, Ole Miss on the schedule. More than likely, they lose one of those games. I think they win the other. And then Tennessee, I think they'll be able to win that game because it's at home. But if they lose 2 of those 3, Georgia's at 9-3. They have a tough schedule. They might still get in the playoff. I think it would be interesting to see a 9-3 Georgia versus a 10-2 Iowa, a 10-2 Penn State, a 10-2 Notre Dame. Where would the committee go with those rankings? Because Georgia would have a much, much tougher schedule than the teams that I just mentioned. And I think you could probably make an argument. We don't know at this point, but when it comes to that point in the season, I think there will potentially be an argument that Georgia's the better team. And again, it's just a tougher schedule. So that will be interesting to see if Georgia does go 9-3. But I think they get to 10-2. I think they can get there. And then we go to the number 8 seed. That's going to be Clemson for me. Really haven't changed this pick. I still think this team runs the table. They go 11-1, but then they lose to Miami in the ACC championship game. And I've still got Tennessee at 9. That's where I had them last week. I think this team goes 10-2. Alabama's going to be a tough one. Georgia, I already said I think they lose that game. Maybe they beat Alabama, though, and they lose somewhere else. Maybe they lose to Arkansas this Saturday. I think that could be a sneaky game. So I got Clemson, Tennessee, 8-9 matchup there. And then we go to the number 10 team. That's Penn State. I think Penn State gets to 10-2, maybe even 11-1. But with their schedule, if Penn State does not go to the Big Ten championship and they finish 11-1, could we possibly see some 10-2 teams ranked ahead of them, like Georgia, like Tennessee? I think that's possible. When you look at the resumes, when you look at the schedules, Penn State has a very, very favorable schedule. So I think Penn State's in there at number 10. That is probably where they're going to wind up if they go 10-2. If they go 11-1, perhaps it's a little bit higher. All right, so then we go to number 11 seed Notre Dame. Now this one was tough for me. Man, I don't know who's going to take this spot. I think Notre Dame probably finishes 10-2. How much is the committee going to penalize them for losing to Northern Illinois? That's going to be the question. And I have no idea. They'll have a decent resume, but not a great resume. If they go 10-2, if there are no other 10-2 teams, would we see a 9-3 team potentially jump ahead of them? I was thinking about USC. I was thinking about USC at 9-3 versus Notre Dame at 10-2. USC probably would have a better resume, but if Notre Dame wins that game, how can you put a 9-3 USC team that lost to Notre Dame that's 10-2? Like, how can you put them ahead of them? So it's really tough for me. Maybe Ole Miss can hang around in this discussion. Then USC, if Michigan is 9-3 with their schedule, I don't know. I mean, could we see a team kind of come out of nowhere? Could we see, let's say Boise State gets in at 11. What if Boise State goes up to 11 and we see a team like Memphis at number 12? I mean, could we see another group of 5 team possibly get that high in the rankings? Or perhaps, Louisville goes 10-2, or someone out of the Big 12. I think it's going to be tough with the Big 12 because those teams are just going to beat up on each other. What if Kansas State, what if they were to kind of run the table, win the Big 12, Utah finishes 10-2? There are a lot of different scenarios for that final spot. Iowa, if they are competitive against Ohio State and then win the rest of their games, they'll be 10-2. I think they would have a better argument than Notre Dame. So this is a tough one for me, but I think there's going to be so many upsets throughout the rest of the season. We're not going to have 10-2 teams left out. So I think Notre Dame, the final 10-2 team, and they get in at number 11. So let's go through the games. Just a quick prediction here. I think we're going to go with, we're going to flip so I had the Sugar Bowl and Peach Bowl there. So we're going to flip those. I think the Peach Bowl will be where Miami is. Texas will play in the Sugar Bowl. That makes a little bit more sense. But, I think that's how those bowl games would line up. So now we get to the games. I think Tennessee beats Clemson. I think it's a competitive game. It'll be tough on the road for Tennessee. But I think this team is a little bit better than Clemson. This is, a tough one. I could see it going either way. I'm going to go Vols right now. Home field advantage, though, would swing me towards Clemson if it came down to making a real prediction for that game. I think Bama rolls over Boise State. I say roll. I think Boise State will compete in this game, but Alabama should win fairly easily. I think Georgia beats Tennessee at home. Georgia beats Penn State at home. Don't see Penn State coming in there and winning that one. And then Oregon, Notre Dame, I think Oregon takes care of that one. So, I think these first-round matchups, the only really, really close one would be Clemson, Tennessee, if these were the matchups. I think every other team would win by at least 10 points. And then we go to Ohio State, Tennessee. I think Ohio State's just too good, too talented. Both sides of the ball, I think they're they're just the better team. I think it'll be a pretty good one, but give me Buckeyes. Alabama, Utah, I think the Crimson Tide roll here in this one. And again, when we start dissecting these matchups, seems like a lot of games that really wouldn't even be all that close. I think Texas, Georgia would be very close. I think very good chance that Texas wins that game in the regular season. But I'm going to go with Kirby Smart, going with Georgia in the playoff. They get some revenge, and Georgia advances to the semifinals. Oregon, Miami. I really want to see more from Oregon against better competition. I just don't know how good they are. I know Miami has potential to be really, really good. Can they keep it together? Can they stay consistent? That's the question. But we're going to say Miami. I think Miami wins a great win here. And first time I've had them in the Final Four. But we're going Miami to win that game. Then we've got Ohio State, Alabama. How about this matchup in the semifinals? Should be a great one. I think Ohio State's defense, they find a way to slow down Jalen Milroe, and they have enough offense to win this one. So going Buckeyes here. And then Georgia, Miami. I think Georgia just a deeper team, more talented team overall. Going Bulldogs. So we get Ohio State, Georgia. That's been my national championship pick. From the beginning, from the preseason through all, each week we do these videos, it's been Ohio State, Georgia, and it's been Ohio State as my champion every single time. I'm sticking with that. But after I see Ohio State play Iowa this weekend, then I think I'm going to come to a conclusion on just how good this team is. Because right now I really don't know. I'm still kind of basing this off of preseason and all the research that I did into all these teams. At that point, I thought Ohio State was the team that was going to do it. Haven't seen enough to back that up yet, but I think we're going to get a better idea after this Iowa game. And perhaps next week, for the first time, I change my national champion pick if I don't like what I see against Iowa. But for now, we're going Buckeyes. Give me your playoff predictions down in the comments below.